Okay, hi there, ADPR 451 folks. As I mentioned before break, we're going to try and do this lesson as a sort of a flipped lesson where um, you read, although I don't know that you have a reading this week. We've already started talking about data and visuals a bit. You've already had a quiz on that. But I wanted to go through go through the content before we meet this coming week 11, and then spend our time in class working on examples and then getting you started on the assignment for the week. So that's kind of why I'm doing it this way, and we'll see how it goes, if it's something that you like, or if we want to kind of revert to the old way of me lecturing in class, though I don't think that's exactly fun for anyone. So I'm going to talk about data visualization today in this video. And what I want you to do before sort of how to have this in your head, you want to watch this video, and then I want you to check out the links that are in the video. There's at least one video, and there's a couple of articles that are linked. So you'll have this video, and then you'll also have the links pulled out in the module page. And then you'll also have as always, the slides that are available to you in our Google Drive folder. So you'll have access to everything. But my recommendation to you is to watch the video, and then as you're watching, pause the video and do the reading and the watching of the external linked video. I think that'll kind of help you keep everything in context. So, let's see. The other thing that I'm going to recommend that you do as you go through this video, make notes for yourself about some of these main ideas and concepts. And I want you to, I'm not going to give you any points for it, but if you create some sort of document for yourself of your notes and bring it to class on Tuesday, you can then use that. You'll have sort of a framework ready to go to prepare you to complete the activities and start the assignment that we'll talk about in class. So that's my strong recommendation to you. It's, again, not a requirement and it's not worth any points, but I think that will help you be ready for action when we get to class on Tuesday. So in terms of data visualization, what is it? Because it's not exactly what we talked about with respect to visuals. It kind of goes beyond the idea of a visual. So a visual is a photo, a graphic, something like that. But data visualization is even more important today, as you probably all have heard some discussion of big data. And really, data visualization, if you want to think about it, is information visualization. If you're at all like me and the concept of data kind of freaks you out, or big data kind of freaks you out, you might also sort of replace or hold synonymous the idea of data and information together. But essentially, data visualization is visual storytelling with numbers. So data or concepts that are in a pictorial or graphic format. So there's a lot of different things that go along under this umbrella of data visualization, and we'll talk about those in just a few minutes. But essentially, the reason people are using data visualization, the fundamental reason is it allows people to see information more easily. And if it's helpful for an average reader or someone who's exposed to your information to see and understand and process information more easily, then it is even more so valuable and important for anybody who's a decision maker. So if you're ever trying to convince somebody of something or get them to change their mind about something, this is a particular type of communicating information, a particular way of communicating information that can really be helpful to you and help people make decisions. It's quicker, it's easier to grasp complicated ideas and also to see trends and patterns over time. And that's why that big data concept is so attractive and interesting to people. If you want to think about it this way, grasping difficult concepts, if you've ever been to another country and you've been in a vehicle, a car or a bus or something like that, and you've looked at road signs, there are road signs that even if you don't speak French or Spanish or Italian or Chinese or whatever the language of the country that you're in is, you can still understand the point of the sign because it's represented visually. So no parking, one way, don't enter, those types of things. It helps you, rather than have to translate the information from the language that you don't speak and have to look it up, there's a more pictorial format there. So that's kind of the part of the idea behind data visualization. So when thinking about how does this work, because what you see here is words on a screen. So when thinking about how this works, I want to show you an example, and it's from this blog link down here on the bottom. But think about which one of these two examples is easier to understand and process. So the first example is this bullet point, which is 2 sentences long. This year, you helped feed 162 homeless families in our community. The $55,300 raised in our crowdfunding campaign was the biggest single gift ever received by the local shelter, and our volunteers built 13 new houses for needy families. So, valuable information here, right? You fed a lot of homeless families in the community. You raised a certain number of dollars, which was the biggest ever. You volunteers built 13 new houses for needy people. Those are some pretty impactful, pretty big deal things that this organization was successful at. Here's the second example of presenting information related, the same information in a pictorial format. So which one is easier to understand, quicker for you to understand? Okay, it's probably example number 2. And the reason for that, and this is from your textbook, but visual data is processed up to 60,000 times faster by the human brain than text alone or text at all. So, pretty big difference. What I want you to do is watch this video. It's fairly short, certainly less than 15 minutes, and I think it's even shorter than that. So go ahead and pause your video, this video, and go ahead and watch the art of data visualization. As you do that, I want you to be thinking about what are the main points, what would the takeaways of the video be? And then on the next slide, I'm going to kind of cover what some of those important elements are and what I want you to take away from that video. Okay, so go ahead and pause and start your video, and then come on back to this. All right, so in thinking about the video, there's all kinds of great stuff in this video, but there were some key points that I thought were important to pull out because they're going to be helpful for you in when it's time to apply and start sort of doing exercises related to our data visualization hobby. The first piece of information that I thought was really important was one of the people in the video says that you need to pay attention to 3 things when you're creating any kind of data visualization, okay? You need to pay attention to you as a designer and what you have to communicate. So your end, what's going on for you as the communicator, okay? Then the second element here you have to think about is your reader or your viewer and where they come from, what their context is, what their perspective is, and it also mentioned biases. I thought that was pretty important. And then the third thing that you need to pay attention to is the data itself and how it informs, and it said the truth, but I think you want to think about how it informs the story that you're trying to tell. So how does it support the story that you're trying to tell, the data that you are going to represent in your data visualization, okay? They said a few really interesting things, I think, about human beings. The first one is that we have an incredibly powerful capacity to process visual information. And our brains are actually designed to recognize patterns much more quickly. They also made a comment or a point about emotional impact, that as human beings we react to design as much as we react to the information that is contained in the design. Okay, so be thinking about that as you look at some examples and you think about creating your own examples, which you're going to do for your assignment for the class. The idea that successful infographics tell stories. So this is just sort of a different way of communicating. It's not necessarily the long form writing that we've been doing for the most part in this class, but you are still telling a story. So you have to very clearly understand what is the story that you need to tell using this data that you've got. Then there was also a comment about, a lot of times people sort of underestimate their audiences, that audiences are smarter than you think they are, so you need to make sure that you don't underestimate your audience, you respect them, and that you really understand your content, that you know what information you need to convey. Okay? So I want you to also go ahead now and pause and read this article about how data visualization improves public relations communications. And as you read, make some notes to yourself about what are the reasons it says, because it gives some reasons about why PR people should use data visualization in their work. And so I want you to come to class on Tuesday ready to sort of talk about the main points of this piece. It's not very long, so go ahead and make sure that you check it out and pause your video and then come on back to this. Okay, so I wanted to also reiterate some of the information that is from your course textbook about infographics. And one of the main points that they make is that when you present things in an interesting visual way, so not just in a visual way, but in an interesting visual way, people are much more likely to remember things. The chapter made 4 points about how visuals help. They help with a story in terms of creating a story. They help break through some of the clutter. Sometimes if you read, like that first example about, there were lots of numbers in that example. And it was kind of mentally cluttered when you were trying to figure out what all the important pieces of information were in it. And so if you turn those data points or those pieces of information into visuals, it can help people break through the clutter of all that different information. Of course, as you know, because I presume you have shared any number of different types of visuals, they're much more shareable, certainly on social media, but it makes things easier to transfer and you have a better chance of getting your information to a wide audience. And then the fourth point that they made in the chapter was it can help you be more persuasive with your content. Okay. They also talk about how you can use data visualization to sort of bring the information to life. And I think this example here of World Octopus Day is a great one. First of all, I don't care much about octopi or octopuses, but I thought it was a really interesting illustration, a really interesting infographic, because it really does sort of bring the information about octopus to life. One of the things I like about it is, especially this one about muscle here, 90% muscle, that really sort of gives me an idea of they're a very, very strong animal. Another piece that I thought was really interesting and kind of brought this story or this information to life for me was this octopus tentacle that has the suction cups on it. That's something that is pretty characteristic of an octopus, and not a lot of other, certainly other sea creatures have it, but not the way that it looks on an octopus. So I thought that was pretty cool. And overall, I think this does a pretty decent job of bringing information in the infographic to life. Here's another one that I thought was great, was the skull and crossbones aspect of things. So you can really use this to highlight core messages. If it's a part of a supplement of like a news release or a press release, even better, right? You can reinforce your core messages that were in your release. So a little bit more about information from the textbook that I want to draw your attention back to. The beauty of an infographic is that it can really convey things quickly. The book talks about wowing the reader immediately, and certainly well-designed infographics can do that. It also talked about 4 elements of purpose and value, the idea of a fun and compelling yet digestible format. So again, a lot of times this requires you taking numbers and data that may or may not be very interesting or quote-unquote sexy, and transferring that into something that is more interesting and attractive to people. A lot of times providing a call to action. I think when we look at some examples in class, we may see that some fall short on this, so that might be something that you recognize is important but not always adhered to in the examples or in infographics. They can really help you generate brand awareness, and they can also derive media coverage, again, because of that shareability aspect. But the book highlights what's really the primary purpose: to show things, to show information, data, in a colorful, appealing way, more easily understood by the reader. Okay, so ultimately that's what you're looking for in terms of creating an infographic. And I would say sort of translation, that sort of translates into data visualization. So not all data visualizations are infographics, but all infographics are data visualizations. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in class. Okay, so I want to show you real quickly this infographic about infographics. And I'm going to take you to the link here and show you an example of a pretty typically designed infographic, designed to be on the web, to be digital, rather than to be printed out and shared. But it's about how using infographics can help you. It's by this organization, Mammoth Infographics. And they do a great job here of different segments of pieces of information and how they relate to each other. I feel like my computer kind of froze there for a second, I think. Hang on just a sec. Oh, sorry guys, there's a hiccup in there. I apologize about that. So I'm going to go here to this video, and sorry, I'm going to go back to this infographic about infographics and show you that it has all these different sections, but what it does in each of the sections of information draws out some specific data and then uses images, other graphics to help illustrate the point that they're trying to make, which is these are some great reasons you might consider using infographics to communicate about your organization. It's specifically about marketing, but you also get some information here about social media and that kind of thing. So you can get a good idea about why use an infographic from this resource. So for those of you who are like me and think, oh my gosh, I don't know how to start this, I don't know anything about design, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, there are lots of recommendations out there. There are 2 links here that talk about recommendations, and I would definitely encourage you to look at the first one. It's fairly short, but then the second one is 37 great infographic design tools, or data visualization, really, tools. But there are some that I want to draw your attention to, and I'm not going to click on them, but I'm going to encourage you to click on them on your own and see what you have used before, what you like, what you don't like, or what you want to try and use. But Canva, Infogram, and Pictochart are all 3 great infographic or data visualization building tools. They're all free, so all you have to do is start an account. And of course, there are options to purchase things and that kind of stuff. So just be aware of that. I don't expect that for this assignment that you have to purchase anything, but please be aware that there are a lot of opportunities to choose to be charged for something. You're not going to fall into something pretty easily and get charged for something without knowing it, but there are, so you want to make sure that you're careful about, you understand what's going to be a charge and what's not. But there's a lot of options for the completely free opportunities, especially on Canva. I have some experience with that. In thinking about, okay, so those are programs, those are the building tools. In terms of images and icons, a lot of times there are struggles. So here are some resources: Unsplash, PicMonkey, and then HubSpot has a particular sort of icon kit that I think if you just enter some information, they will let you download all these different icons for use in an infographic for completely free. In thinking about what you want to do before you come to class on Tuesday, I want you to think about what kinds of data, what kinds of information might you need to depict? Okay, so if you work for a client or you work for an organization and you're a public relations person, what kind of information might that organization have that that you would then be turned to and required to turn into some sort of data visualization? So a great example is this site visually, and it's actually a, um, a site where they're going to design things for you, but they have some great examples. And the examples that I pulled up here on this link are from public relations and marketing. So all of the infographics that they show on this link are related to public relations and marketing. There are other examples on the site, so I'm going to ask that you check out these examples and just kind of see, based on what you've learned here and what you've read and in the video, what's good and what's not. What I'd like you to do is bring an example to class. Bring it digitally is fine. So either bookmark it or copy and paste the link or somehow capture it and bring it to class and be ready to talk about why you chose that one, what you like, and if there's anything you don't like about it based on this content, this information, and what you've learned so far about data visualization. Okay? And finally, I want you to read this quick article. It's very short about what are the takeaways on visual data visualization. What are the things you need to sort of walk away remembering about all of this? And then if you're interested in more, these are not required. There is another video. It's a TEDx video, but it's an interesting narrative. I think it's about 14 minutes. And then there's also an article linked here. So those are certainly not required. They're supplemental, but all of the other links in the previous slides are things that you need to take a look at and come to class, having checked out and be ready to work on assignments in class. So let me know if you have questions, and if not, I will see you on Tuesday the 28th in class.